everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today. I am here to ask you to please break up with your bad UX because we're bored. So I couldn't help but wonder, does crypto UX have to be so bad? This was me in 2022 when I first joined the crypto industry. And it was one of the things that I was like most excited to kind of like come in and tackle. I lead the product team, and we're also the team behind Mobile Stack, really focused on making Web3 mobile. Okay, so why does that matter? On average, 50% of the top 100 dApps traffic is coming from mobile. And actually, a lot of the partners that we work with say it's more like 60 to 70%. And yet, 8% have mobile apps. Like, what gives? I think we come to these conferences and we talk a lot about onboarding onboarding users to Web3, mass adoption. But I think sometimes we're focused on the wrong things and maybe not focus on meeting the user where they're at. And so that's why I'm so excited to just share that we launched the SheFi mobile app, which is really focused on, again, meeting users where they are, really focused on a tailored experience for newer to crypto users. And also just being mobile first. Yeah, thank you. And I know this is like small, but it's really great evidence to see reactions to building for end users and actually seeing what that means and the impact that that has. And so just want to say that if your UX exhibits any of the following behaviors, highly recommend that you dump them. So, for example, poor communication, lots of friction, not helping your users understand what's going to happen next in your app. 2, gaslighting, okay? Saying that it's really easy and intuitive, and yet having to connect to a dApp seems to be so frustrating and hard, speaking from experience. Commitment issues, so someone saying that they're all about mobile, but they still require you to download and do something on desktop. Very frustrating. Signs of incompatibility, so not being interoperable or working on multiple networks, and of course, being still in love with your ex. So this is us really focused on making Web3 mobile, and I am so excited to be on this panel to talk more about bad UX or good UX. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you so much, Laura. Awesome. Well, while we're getting the intro slide back up, just want to say, how is everyone going today? Can everyone give a bit of a cheer? Yay, awesome. So we've got a really good talk today. The topic is called Break Up with Your Bad UX. And as Laura's already started to show, there's a lot of toxic patterns going on in this industry. We're here to change that. We're here to discuss it, bring it to the surface, and work out how we can move forward. So I'm going to quickly introduce everybody here. So today, firstly, we've got Jane. Jane is from Stellar. Welcome, welcome. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a bio, and we're going to ask them a very important question. So Jane is from Stellar. She's been working in the industry since 2013. She's been previously at JP Morgan, doing onboarding wallets and a developer tool for Neo Protocol. So Jane, can you tell me, in one word, how would you describe your relationship with UX?
I think for me, it's very exciting. I've been telling these ladies that I've been in a toxic relationship for the past 11 years. So I started in the industry when there was primarily Bitcoin. And I came from an engineering background where back in the days, everyone had to you had to know code to be able to work in the industry. And so I think it has grown so much since, and we should acknowledge how much we came from that point.
Wonderful, yes. And we also have Georgia. So Georgia is from MetaMask. I'm sure that needs no introduction. Who in this room is using a MetaMask wallet? Nice.
It will get better.
Very nice, very nice. So Georgia's the lead user researcher at MetaMask, and she's been working in the space for over 6 years, plus a lot before that. So Georgia, what word would you use to describe your relationship with UX?
Frustrated.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I've been working in this space for a long time. The topic of this panel, I've spoken on a why does your UX suck panel every year for the last 6 years. Thankfully, the conversation has changed a lot, but still we're here, and we can get into why we're here still a bit later. But yeah, frustrated with the space, but hopefully with some nudging, people in this room can help change it.
I'm sure we can take a step forward, at least, I hope. And Laura's just spoken, so you've already heard a bit about Laura at Valora, and some of you might be using the SheFi app. Who's using that right now? A few of us, cool. I'm using it. It's been really great, really well done. And so, yeah, Laura, what is the word that you want to use in one word?
I would say humbling. I think the crypto UX really forces you to think about what the user really needs, education and accessibility, particularly for a newer to crypto audience. And I think really captures the importance of, focusing on building with real user impact.
Fantastic. So I think you can see we've got 3 industry legends in the room. And today we're really going to unpack a little bit about what's going on in the space. So we can think of it a bit like UX is our toxic boyfriend, and we're going to get a little bit nasty and just talk a bit about it, but I promise it's going to get better. So let's start with Georgia. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the toxic patterns that you have found since working in the Web3 space?
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk specifically about like bad UX patterns as you might be familiar with them, which is like, sneaky buttons and opt-outs that should be opt-ins and things like that. The bad UX is a result of like multiple like macro level issues. The first one is an obsession with solving really gnarly engineering problems. I've spoken to teams who they've been working on a protocol for 2 years, and I asked them, what's your use case? And they're like, we don't know. Why are we spending all this time building these things if we have no idea who it's for and what it's for? A few maybe controversial things also that are a reason why the UX sucks is culture. Web3 culture is really insular. It's tribe-like. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's cool to be part of the tribe, but it's so heavily signaling in a particular way that it's ostracizing for a lot of people. What ends up happening is our interfaces reflect our culture. We've all seen like dApps with like terrible, ironic interfaces. That's not how you adopt a billion users, right? Irony is not going to get you there. We need things to be really simple for folks. Another issue really is, we've got developer centricity, culture, is money, right? Also, so this obsession with building things for Web3 investors. So you have to signal your Web3-ness, which means you're not then thinking about being like a nice, easy-to-use Web2 thing. And my last thing I say is obsession with community. Community's great. Makes a project feel really good when you've got people in your Discord. They're not your users. Most of the time, they're there for speculation. They're part of many communities. What does it even mean to be part of a community? Is people building a product based on feature feedback from people in their Discord, not even knowing if they're actually users. It's a massive problem. I'll stop there.
Well, what do you think, Jane? How's it been for you based on all that? You're building your own community in the nonprofit.
Yeah, definitely. So I think as industry, we definitely have a set ethos, and that signals that you're in the in crowd. And those ethos tend to hold a lot of weight, but not all of those are productive. So for example, we have the saying, not your keys, not your crypto. And it's pretty much true. It's true technically, but it doesn't actually apply for all the users. So given a personal example, at some point, I realized FTX is going down, and asked my mom to withdraw her little bit of crypto from the exchanges into a Ledger wallet. And just watching her and how frustrated it was for her to learn how to use a Ledger made me realize that not your key is not a realistic outcome for all different types of users. So I think we need to take a very practical approach and understand that crypto, in order to get the next billion users, not just for the crypto native, but for people from all different backgrounds, and build those user experience of those type of users.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. Just to add a little bit too, I think often the experiences that we have in Web3 are, the front end just matching the back end, and realistically that doesn't actually help a user accomplish what they're trying to do. So that's one thing for me. And then the second is using a lot of jargon that's not really familiar. And so we use terms that, why would anybody know what a liquidity pool means necessarily? And so I think just that's like proliferates in our industry to some degree.
The language is really ostracizing. Like even just the fact that the term NFT became common parlance, right? In 2020, 2021, everyone in the world was talking about what's an NFT? There's no reason why the term non-fungible token should ever have existed in the normal world. It's a digital collectible. And it's like to your point, like the UI is that the front end is basically the back end, which is basically the white paper. It's like no thought's gone through the process about how we're actually going to interpret this information so that a person who can genuinely get something out of it is attracted to it. When people see something and they don't understand it, they think it's not for them, and we lose a massive audience.
Yes, agree.
It's a real problem, I think. All of this, we got the terminology, we got the fact that, like you say, the core principles of what UX is built around, they're not working, right? But Jane, you were saying that the space has also come a long way. You've been here for a very long time. And what have you got to say about like how we've moved over the last 10 years?
Yeah, so back in the days when I started, it's pretty much the focusing the ecosystem is mostly from a cypherpunk background, and pretty much we're running codes on our local, or basically our home computers. I think over time, I've seen us working on concepts like meta transactions, sponsor transaction, gasless transaction, some other, also smart wallets, and we've gone a long way in thinking about how do we bring very difficult Web3 concepts to Web2 audiences. Now, our industry we do have very complex concepts, and that doesn't really exist in traditional Web2 world. So there is a onboarding problem that we need to think about for users starting from Web2 and teaching them these concepts such that they can become a sophisticated Web3
Wonderful. So we've heard a little bit about our bad relationship with UX, and I do want to keep this positive. So we're going to talk now a bit about what good UX looks like in the industry and what best practices are happening, as well as what you guys are doing in the space. I know all three of you been busy working. So let's talk a little bit with Laura. You've been working on this really exciting app. Do you want to tell us a bit about what good UX looks like and what you guys are doing to move the industry forward?
Yeah, I think for us, being mobile first is so important. So many people have a mobile phone, but not everybody has access to a desktop computer. And so I think mobile first is one of the things I think is really exciting. I also think one of the things that we're really focused on at Flora 2 is being able to do something in just a couple of taps. So for example, not needing to try and get a gas paying token to like do what you're trying to do, or not really understanding what you have to do. So you have to go and do a bunch of research before you do it, like really contextualizing what a user's trying to do and making that really easy in just a couple of taps. So we also are pretty focused on gasless transactions as well, and making it easier for users to just do what they're trying to do.
You make it sound so easy. Is it as easy as you make it sound?
I think yes and no. I do think that it often takes more work, more effort to make a beautiful user experience, but it's totally worth it. The impact is high.
Just to give a bit of an idea for the teams that are building better UX, how long does it usually take for you to try and remove some of those steps? When you guys have an idea, what does that product process look like? Your face tells it all.
Go ahead.
Well, I can speak, in a MetaMask capacity, when you have so much engineering overhead. So one of the problems is there's a lot to lose, right? If you make any change or like mess anything up in the experience, there's a lot to lose. So what happens is that changes in the app are very slow because of this like fear of, what happens if it explodes. So very, very slow on our side, but there are some big things which are happening. So along with things like gasless transactions, which just absolutely has to happen in this space,
Absolutely.
and is happening. MetaMask, the team at MetaMask are rolling out their own SDK. It's called Gator. It's a delegation toolkit. So this is essentially account abstraction to allow any dApps or developers to be able to build something where all the Web3-ness is abstracted. You get all, the usefulness and security and technology of MetaMask, but it's hidden. So the user doesn't have to save keys, any of that stuff. That's exactly where we need to get to in order for the mass market to be able to use this stuff. Like coming back to our earlier points, no one actually wants to be their own bank. That's the terrible experience. And I say no one. 99% of the world doesn't want to be there. And I'm sure the other 1% are here at DevCon, right? So it's talking to the wrong audience. But But the reality is, like, most people will go for convenience and ease of use over something that's very, very difficult for them to learn to use. And that's where we're going to get to.
That's great, Georgia. So we started this conversation talking about good UX. So you've touched on that a little bit. Jane, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yes, I think you should think through the different user audiences. Certainly you have the Web3 native folks who are looking for customization, the granularity of control, fast transactions. You probably have Web3 users when you think about onboarding and move them into deeper into the rabbit hole.
100%. So I would love to kind of unpack this a little deeper. Maybe each of you could share a bit of a story of something that you've worked on when it comes to UX in the space and how that's kind of come to play. Laura, would you like to start off?
Yeah, great. I think for us, one of the things that we've built recently that I am personally very excited about is making it really easy to earn on your crypto. And that seems really straightforward, but actually there's a lot involved in like curating that experience for a user, making sure that a user can just deposit funds and not need to get a different token. It's really clear what they're doing. And so I think for us, that's something that I'm really excited about.
Fantastic. How about you, Georgia?
So are we talk about things like we're excited about going forwards, or like things of the past that we've done?
I would like to think about things moving forward, but if you have a story to tell, get it off your chest.
I think, no, it's all good. I've got some war stories, so I'll happily share them after the talk. But I think what I'm excited about is seeing more interest in the topic of user experience and more product designers and more experienced product managers moving into the space as well. We need people from Web 2 to be working in Web 3 because they've built products with users. And it's quite frustrating seeing people heads down building something and then naively thinking that people are going to use it, because that's just not the case. So I'm excited about us actually, this technology I'm really jaded, but this technology is so powerful. That's why I'm still here, is because I see that we can change people's lives for the better, people who don't care about all the stuff that we necessarily care about. But when Web3 makes someone's life measurably better, that's what we can aim towards as a community. And so talking to more users, getting out of our Web3 bubbles is essential for this.
How about you, Jane?
At Stellar, we're focused on bringing real-world use cases. So you've seen earlier a talk where the speaker showed disbursement for refugees on Stellar. So those are some of the mission-aligned businesses we're looking to bring on chain. We're making a lot of new, interesting innovations, including smart wallets, including meta transactions, and we have a $100 million community fund that is open to everyone, and there's a monthly application process. So if you're building Web3, we would love to see you bring great UX to Stellar.
Oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, it's great. Brilliant.
That's great. All right, so to wrap up this panel, we're going to just end with a little bit of a takeaway, something that you want to say. We've got these great people in the room, everybody in the UX and Web3 space. So do you guys want to start? Maybe we'll start with you over there, Laura. What is one thing you want people to take away from this talk?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to always think about the user and what's most important to the user. I think to me, that is like the number one thing, and really tailor an experience that makes sense for who you're building for and making their life really easy.
The path to success is being open to the idea that you are wrong, right? Your assumptions are wrong. And we have to welcome that, and then we can learn and take on learnings and build better things. So get outside of your bubble, speak to users who don't care about your product or are not interested in Wenmoon or anything like that. Go and talk to normal people and find a problem, and then see how you might be able to solve it.
My advice is to embrace disruptive ideas. Our industry moves at a breakneck speed, and there's always something new that's happening. So you might have heard from talks about AI. I think that's going to be a massive change in the way that people develop applications and perhaps have low-code and no-code solutions for the future. So if you're thinking of what to build, I would say be at the cutting edge. That's where the innovation happens.
Well, while we've got everyone on stage, then, is there anything, maybe Georgia, I know you had a really big speech to me about user research and all of everything around that. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so when I first started working in the space 6 years ago, there were about 10 user researchers globally working in crypto. We all found each other because it was so niche. And thankfully, there are many, many more. We have a team of them at MetaMask and lots of other projects in the space too. And this community is getting larger. But I think some of the values that user research is the most valuable the sooner you do it, even before you code anything. No one's going to actually do that because those aren't the people starting companies. The people starting companies in the space are engineers, right? Or really into finance. So they're going to just write code first. It's just undeniable. But if you can try and bring a user researcher in earlier, the better. I do have one war story, which is when I worked at Consensus some time ago, as with all big tech companies at that time, they had to get into space. So the company acquired an asteroid mining company. I was tasked with doing some user research into blockchain in space. The value of this user research was that the whole team pivoted away from this idea, right? Because there was no use case for it. So this is the value of doing your validation work really early, is you could save yourself a lot of heartache before you plow loads of energy into building something that effectively it doesn't solve a problem for anybody and no one's going to adopt it.
That's wild. How about you, Laura? Any wild war stories on your side?
Wild stories. Jane, do you have any that you want to share?
In terms of UX, I think is quite interesting in the crypto. In the DeFi summers, we actually saw applications that was built from UIs from the 90s. And that was quite challenging actually to use, but that was actually considered cool in a kind of offbeat kind of way. I think they have realized that they needed to switch to a better UX to onboard a wider set of users. But yeah, I think that's quite funny.
I'm not sure I have a specific wild story that I'm going to share, but I will kind of reiterate my word at the beginning, which was humbling. I think one of the the value of doing user research early and often is that you find so much from your users, and it can be very, 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 very humbling. You spend a lot of time working on something, and then you're like, oh, exactly, it doesn't have user impact, or like users don't need it. And it's so great to get that before you start building.
Fantastic. All right, and now I have my final wrap up. So we've talked a little bit about breaking up with UX. We've heard the stories of what's been going on in the space, heard about these toxic relationships and what we're doing to improve the situation and how far the industry's come. I think it's a really inspiring place to be, really exciting what's going on. So definitely have a chat to these panelists after the chat, and we will get off stage so you can go to the next panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.